one at all. Not a single soul. Polyglots. Do I sound different in another language? Do I sound like another person? Do I sound like me?
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Heyyy.
Hey guys, I'm back with another video. So we're just gonna hop right into it. No dilly-dallying, let's go. Why do I sound different when I speak another language? I think that one of the main reasons we can say that this occurs attributes to that saying that we are a product of our environment.
You're a product of your environment.
Hear me out though. We as humans are naturally forced to assimilate to what we hear based off of what we're around, what we know, where we are, and who we're with, right? Whether it's a drastic change or a subtle change, but the change happens. Have you ever been told that you sound like a different person when you're talking to different people? Code switching. We almost all do it. Think of the way that you speak to a baby.
You think I'm cute?
Versus your boss at work. Or the way you speak to your best friend.
Girl. Girl. Girl.
Versus the way you speak to an elderly person you met at the grocery store.
Hello.
Not the same vibe, am I right? Yeah. What if I told you that this phenomenon also exists when switching languages? Listen closely. Okay, so let's take it back a few steps. Code switching. For those that aren't familiar, code switching is essentially the change in a way that someone speaks to assimilate or relate better to their listener. Okay, but what does this have to do with sounding different? Patience, young grasshopper. It's coming. We'll get there. So thanks to this thing called evolution, we as humans certainly don't speak the same way that we did hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Fie, what an indirect and peevish course is this of hers.
This morph in diction, phonology, and even pronunciation has definitely made its mark of influence for us to behave and interact in the way that we do today. When it comes to producing and reproducing language, every language has its own unique set of intonations, tone, pitch, melody, rhythm, and even personality, if you will.
Your voice is your personality. Whew, what a statement.
This is largely based on location, people, and culture. Certain languages just tend to be, for lack of a better word, louder than others.
Child, will you keep quiet? Child.
While other languages execute in more of a calmer, demure way. And this is simply just due to the customs and traditions in the ways of communication in those languages. Okay guys, before we go any further, I have to take a quick moment to introduce Luna Lingo, who is partially sponsoring today's video. Luna Lingo is a pretty cool learning source that helps you build and retain, because retaining is important, vocabulary in a fun, creative, interactive way. And you can sign up completely free. So major shout out to Luna Lingo. Thank you so much for today's sponsorship. And if you're serious about improving your language, go check that out guys and begin learning with Luna Lingo today. Okay, so back to it. Another reason for this distinction is because languages can give a stress or emphasis on certain words or parts of a word differently from one another. To put it phonetically, some languages are stress timed and other languages are syllable timed.
Today is as a result of the fact that government has failed in its categorical imperative.
For example, languages like English, German, and Dutch are stress timed.
Wo kommst du her?
Ich komme aus Niederschlesien, in der Nähe von Breslau, ja.
Versus languages like Spanish, French, Mandarin, Yoruba, those are syllable timed.
Hey! Me.
And it isn't always completely black and white. There's definitely a spectrum that exists. For now, let's just keep it simple. So we'd have to enter a whole world deeper into phonetics and phonology, and that's for another video for another time. I digress. Let's get back to the subject at hand. Why do we sound different when speaking other languages? So while it is true that everyone has their own unique voice, intonations, and pitch based off of higher or lower levels of frequency in which they speak, sometimes that can change, as we talked about earlier, depending on who you're around, what you're saying, who you're talking to, what you're talking about. Sometimes it's involuntary and sometimes it's very intentional. Earlier, I gave an example of the former. Now it's time to weave in the language part. Do you speak another language? Try it now. Ask yourself, do I sound different in another language? Have you ever heard someone tell you that you sound different speaking your native language? Or you sound different speaking another language? Do you speak a third language? Take a moment. Yes, actually take a moment. So, what are the results? Do you hear the difference? Do you think you hear the difference? Are you delusional? I'm just kidding. Come on, chat, share with the class. Did you speak in front of someone? Can they hear the difference, but maybe you can't? Sometimes we don't notice it, but it's very much present. If you feel like definitely sound different or speak differently, you're not alone. Trust me, you're not alone at all. In fact, an article on psycholinguistics from phys.org speaks about the studies and findings reported from bilingual speakers who notice changes in their emotional behavior and perception when speaking either native or second languages, which can in turn affect how one processes core memory and even reality. Also, according to a 2019 article from the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America, a study was done where participants needed to identify bilingual speakers after switching languages mid-conversation. And results showed that a higher percentage of people were unable to successfully identify speakers. Specifically, participants that spoke only one language had a much rougher time than their multilingual counterparts. Additionally, here's some feedback from various sources with multilingualists talking about their personal experiences. As you can see, it's pretty varied, but a common theme amongst many. Interesting, right? But not shocking. As I mentioned earlier, depending on the situation, who we're around, what we're talking about, and who we're talking to, this can definitely influence how we speak to others. Also taking into account the way in which the vowels of words are shaped and how we need to contort or move our mouth in order to speak more comfortably in that language. It kind of translates over to when someone speaks with an accent when their native language isn't the language that they're speaking in.
When I learned Did you, for example, I had to learn a completely different set of mouth movements for that language because Did you is very different to Vietnamese. And then when I learned Vietnamese, I had to learn another different set of mouth movements.
So for example, I'm a native English speaker. I would need to learn a foreign language in the way that it's taught and it's spoken in that target language and not in my own language. My language is conditioned, my mouth and motor movements in my oral space is conditioned to speak in English because that's my native tongue. But when learning another language, I have to take in consideration how this language sounds differently from my own native language, which sometimes means accommodating different movements and shapes to formulate those sounds. So it's almost like when we're learning a new language, we kind of have to relearn the language in the way that it's spoken and not the way in which we know how to speak. Hope that makes sense.
Let's dive deeper into this topic. And the reason I sounded different was because I had learned two completely different set of mouth movements before I had to learn a third set of mouth movements using your voice. So that's why when you shift the way you communicate, it indicates a shift in personality.
Personally speaking, I definitely do feel like I take on multiple personalities when I speak different languages. I'd be lying if I said that I was never told this before in my life, but I've also accepted it. I've agreed with it, and embrace this multitude of personas, if you will. Multiple personalities unlocked. Who said that? But I would say that like my Spanish voice is definitely a lot more bright and giddy and just shiny, if you will.
Así que tengo que hablar esa lengua, ¿no? Bueno, pues mi pasión es los idiomas y entonces estoy aquí no solo para enseñar, pero también para aprender de todos.
My French-speaking voice tends to be a little bit more controlled, pulled in, and closed. Bonjour à tous, bonsoir à tous. Aujourd'hui, c'est le 14 février. En fait, je suis chez moi. C'est trop tard. En fait, je dois dormir. That has a lot to do with what I mentioned earlier about the differences in the vowel sounds and the ways in which my mouth needs to shape to form those sounds. I would say that my most expressive and dramatic way of speaking, definitely Yoruba, which just has a loudness about it in general, in all walks of life.
She's what? She's pregnant. Pregnant?
All roads will definitely lead to the language of Yoruba when we're talking about sound, color, and brilliance. Wo, omo Naijani mi, omo Yoruba ni e. Omo anle. Kiloso, iwotimo. Keshe. Proud Nigerian. Yeah. That's all I have for you today, guys. Thanks so much for joining. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like, and share it with your friends and fam. Tell them to tune in to Live in La Vida Tola. See you later.